I've been thinking a lot about what the concept of neutrality means. Since a young age, I was always taught and raised to confront less and put my head down and just get to working, A lot of Asian immigrants are probably raised this way. That if there's ever a fight happening, I shouldn't be the one to get involved. Probably better to stay away first. And I've always intuitively felt like this was a cowardly response. And I gravitated towards not doing that. Yet the more objectively I try to think about it, the more I feel like silence first is actually the best response. In almost every case where I've tried to solve a physical altercation, things have gotten way more chaotic. In circumstances, for example, where there's a debate about a controversy, me getting involved in the midst of that, it's like a 50-50% chance, probably even more, that the response that I take up is incorrect. When I'm uncertain about a certain opinion or a side, even when I feel like I'm certain about something, I think the best first option is silence. But the silence itself isn't just a physical silence, though I will talk about that concept and what language means in this video. Rather, I think it reflects a clarity of mind, a sense of peace that exists, a place of relaxation where a thoughts of prayer and compassion is automatically offered before starting any conversation. When there is a war between two groups, I think it's always better to pray for both sides first, even if one side is more right than the other. Because if I throw myself in there without actually understanding what's happening, and again, I'm not referring to any specific event that's happening in the world right now, because I do believe that there are certain things that have clear sense of right and wrong, and that both sidism doesn't really fix. But what I'm talking about is if I throw myself automatically in a circumstance, then I'm either useless or casualty or taking up the wrong view without intending to. And so for this reason, I believe that silence doesn't automatically mean neutrality, and neutrality doesn't automatically mean both sidism. For someone as naturally opinionated and as passionate in energy as me, by the way, isn't necessarily a good thing in my opinion, this is the best way to get that most accurate description of what's actually happening in the world. And it comes from my experience of constantly being baited by counter-punching and counter-debating and reflexive attack. I remember I might have had a really stupid opinion about something because I was already sucked into a debate and I was just thinking about winning. Even when I knew I was wrong, I kept going. I kept going and I kept going. I think that happens a lot more than people realize. I mean, I remember, especially as a kid, even as a 12-year-old, I would argue the wrong opinions and leave myself in tears when being beaten, even though I knew I was arguing the wrong opinion. I mean, I think I've hopefully matured from that level of emotional impulsivity, but I still noticed a similar tendency of being sucked back into random verbal debates about really random things, like things like who's a better soccer player, or what's a better movie format to watch, or what is a better book, or what's a better movie. Things that don't really matter in large scale, yet I tend to form very strong opinions about, which I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that at all. It's just that intentionality in those type of altercations is much needed in our lives, I think. I mean, to be perfectly honest with you, these days I don't really get into any physical altercation. Not since I was very young, like very young. And that's because of a mixture of charm, cowardice, and physical prowess, perhaps. I could run away really fast and do parkour or something, These same skills have similarly helped me avoid debates too. I'm doing mental gymnastics to avoid the topic, right? And this is not what I'm saying we should be doing, because it doesn't solve the core problem of trying to understand the truth. That's the main point of anything, right? To get closer to truth that connects us all. What is the right set of facts? Who is the correct person in a war? Can we ever truly know that if our base instinct is to first pick a side and blindly throw ourselves in the mix, which is what I keep wanting to do as a default setting? So for this reason, I do believe that silence and impartiality is the best first option, and then maybe we can make a decision. And this decision should be able to be changed whenever we see a different information. Rather than trying to win something, we're trying to truly do the right thing. But another thing this channel is constantly being about is breaking the rules. When I give this type of blanket statement, I automatically think, when is this rule not applicable? Because these hardline boundaries and concrete sets of advice, I don't think lends itself to making the right decision all the time. But boundaries do bring out certain qualities in us, right? And so I think it's a wise advice to many of us to try practicing silence. For example, I get passionate about things as a baseline. And so a lot of you probably do as well. We all have a lot of opinions, and we should. It doesn't automatically mean we make the right decisions just because we have feelings about something. And it might mean that sometimes you do, and when the right decision comes, it might feel like a miracle, like a gambling addict that gets something right by the luck of a dice. But that's not how we want to live our lives. I don't want to live in a principle of luck. So for that reason, I do think it's important for us to explore rules like this. Don't do this. Speak less. Listen more. Talk less today. Do something intense. Do something hard. Do something quiet. Be disciplined. That's what this entire channel is built around. But rule breaking is a very core principle of what I stand for as well. These sets of constraints that we put on ourselves are only important to the extent that it allows the qualities they shine, the uncovering of our spirit, our awareness, it's our will and our connection to others, the authenticity, whatever that means, the soul, whether or not you believe in that, the connection to the divine, whether or not you believe in that. I'm purposely using words that I don't necessarily believe in actually, but may connect to others and like rile up certain feelings. And I honestly might be triggering some kind of misconceptions by the words that I use, especially words like soul and divine, right? And even authenticity or will. But that's just the nature of language. They are reflected by even more rules, more sets of boundaries. They don't represent unbridled expression, especially if we take it for exactly what it is. They don't reflect truth unless we use it relationally. So when I say be silent, I also automatically do mean break the rules and learn to evaluate things accordingly to each moment and what it demands us. For example, for language, yes, silence might be one part of it. The other aspect of it might be using words that are more poetic. Sometimes we might use deception. Sometimes we might prioritize speed and conciseness over grammar. And this is why we make up words and slangs all the time, right? Mog. This is the exact same reason why things like 6'7" became popular, I think. Because I think what it highlights is a lot of things that we do end up saying are actually kind of nonsensical, but we pretend that it holds value. This is the same reason why brain rot culture has taken so much. It's like a natural criticism of how our culture has developed. We have so many arguments, so many sentences, so many stimuli, so many books, so many podcasts, so many videos, so many media. It's a large source of reactive jargon in our society. The things that we may say don't necessarily hold true principles. Like it might even be saying the right things, but not really connecting with us in some sense. And that's why we nonsensically use words like just to break that mold, to feel any sense of connection or understanding between each other. Perhaps on a deeper level, we have already lost the ability to understand these concepts beyond just the superficial, but I do believe that we are each capable of uncovering that, no matter who you are. So language is the most effective when we intentionally break the rules that are presented to us, I think. Another thing that silence represents to me, it's an expression of us not outsourcing our thinking automatically. There is an option for a wisdom that we already possess to come out when silence is present. Because in some ways, everything that I've watched and truly connected with is just the same core principles applied in different ways. And in this way, every educational book, every source of entertainment, every podcast, every sports game, every dance movement even, it is all pointing to similar things when we connect with it. And that also means that all of it is some sort of entertainment anyway, because we already have those things innate to us, right? No matter how seriously it presents itself, no matter how serious that game feels or that storyline in the news feels, it's all noise in some extent. Letting others teach you stuff and giving you advice, even in this case, this advice or whatever, I think it does come at a cost. This video comes at a cost to whoever's listening. It might be necessary sometimes when you're just starting something new, but realistically, I don't believe that anything underneath the sun is actually new. It's just reformatted. Think about the complexity of learning how to walk as a baby. Were you really taught how to walk? You saw others doing it, but it's not like you asked for advice on how to walk. It was a skill that you have innate to you, and you uncovered it. This is what I believe things like learning, thinking, and even speaking actually is. The way of expressing to the outer world what we already have possessed within us. It's a strategy for learning, yes, but the model for how to learn is already present within us, and it's not revealed by any sets of books or papers that you read. It's really not able to be perfectly expressed. Yes, there are certain things that are probably helpful, but it's not always 100% helpful. And every single model seems to come with some sort of sacrifice. In a beautiful way, it's already innate in us to learn how to understand physics, how to understand business, how to understand morality. Even if it's something that we have not evolved to understand, the fact that we're capable of breaking those boundaries of what evolution designed us for, that's also part of what it means to be someone that could create knowledge and be a good thinker. This is not to say that we don't need help or extra information. I get that it's absolutely necessary, but what I am saying is that the extra information is only helpful to us if we are capable of understanding it in some ways. So we have to go inwards, right? We have to think about ourselves first. Think about how much is already out there. The thousands of years of history available to us, thousands of spiritual books, across hundreds of culture, whatever you connect with. There are countless applications of scientific principles, majority of which doesn't actually change much if you look at the large body of work. The useful methods largely remain similar when it comes to diet and workout, for example. Even the history behind how things are learned and preserved is available to us now. Yet, even with all this access, I would argue that as individuals, not as society, we become a lot less generally skilled when we should be more generally skilled, right? We've come to specialize in certain specific knowledge, but we forgot the principles of how to generally learn. At least I have. This definitely makes us vulnerable. I'm certainly casting a broad light. There's definitely a lot of people that are like great generalists, renaissance people out there. However, compared to how much accessibility we have, I feel like it's a bit pathetic how little skills that I personally have, how fragile and vulnerable I feel to the market, how addicted I am to staying plugged in. Like, why don't I know how to crochet? I wish I did know that. Why don't I know how to speak like 4 different languages? It should be totally possible to do that now. Okay, all this to relate back to the idea of silence once more. I do think speaking automatically lets itself choosing a side, even when that's not the intention. And that's because, like I said before, language and grammar has certain element of deception and abstraction already associated with it, even if it's not the intention. And that's also partly because how we take in words is entirely subjective to what the person has experienced in their life. Like when I say the word stick, some people might think of childhood games that were very positive and innocent. Other people might think of getting beaten, depending on how you grew up. And this is why language could easily mislead us and make us choose sides without even meaning to. It's up to each of us ultimately to have a sense of openness and curiosity. Theoretically, these weaknesses of ours should help us see our connectedness. Yet it feels like because we're outsourcing everything for other people to think for us, for other people to give us advice or whatever, it seems to only lead to our isolation and blindness, to be honest. I don't think it's harder to form relationships these days. I just think that we don't know what we need because there's so much chatter everywhere and noise constantly bombarding us that we can't actually seem to know what we want. We can't seem to know what others would want either. In this way, silence to me represents our ability to learn what must be learned without having to sacrifice anything. It represents to me the beginning of applying a skill that will help us connect with others. Remember, the rules could always be broken, like I said, but silence is a form of rule breaking when our default is always to pick a side and argue. Even if people accuse you of neutrality, of apathy, of lacking a spine, it is the clearest indication to me of a mind that promotes curiosity and play. We might think that in the face of great evil and atrocity, qualities like curiosity and play are of privilege, and it is in some sense. However, without those tools, I think it's impossible to fight against these moral principles correctly, at least. How can we possibly know that we're not contributing to more evil by picking the wrong side? Silence is the antithesis of this. Now, that being said, not saying anything in and of itself doesn't automatically dictate virtue, right? But it is a byproduct of a mind that can see through the greatest illusions. To fight against things we believe are corrupt, we must be able to just observe first and then respond accordingly. We cannot be in a state of automaticity. Mind you, I'm not saying to work backwards. Being quiet doesn't automatically mean that you will automatically find words that help you connect with others. What I am saying is that the product of seeking to understand shows itself as silence first. I truly believe this ability is present in all of us. No matter how horrendous your past was, how rich you are, how poor you are, or how incapable you think you are, none of it truly matters. You can access this sense of awareness always.